Welcome to this episode of Aha Moments with Joanie. These are unscripted, they're slices of life, things that are happening in my world. And the story, I want to tell you a unique story. This is about a woman I only met once in my entire life when I was 19 years old because I went to a rehab hospital to visit my grandmother who had broken her hip, was laying in bed and in the next bed, but she wasn't in the bed, she was sitting there, up was this little lady, Mrs. White, who was 105 years old. Now, Mrs. White had shoes on, she had stockings on, she had a darling dress on with a belt that showed her waist. She had her pearls, she had her earrings, her hair was done, she had her glasses on, and she was reading a book. All quite amazing when you're 105. And she was really paying no attention to my grandmother because I'm sure she had seen lots of bedmates who were like my grandmother. My grandmother had broken her hip. She was laying in bed. She wanted to be fawned over, and she would not get up to exercise because it hurt. So rather than that, she laid in bed, she got pneumonia, and she died. And she was 30 years younger than Mrs. White at 105. That woman, the image of her being self-contained in a place that I thought was very scary at 19, being in a rehab hospital, gave me pause and maybe gives all of us a bit of reflection on what does it take to live to be 105. I think she's a perfect example of that, which is motivation and the ability to sustain yourself. Because at 105, probably everyone she ever knew, all her children, any relatives, they were long gone. But she was here and she was making the most of her life. So that's my story for today. And may we all think of Mrs. White and go, that's the way you take care of yourself. That's the way you live a long and fruitful life. And she was reading a very interesting book because I heard her chuckle a few times. So that's my aha moment for today. And I want to remind you every morning, look into your mirror. I'm sure Mrs. White did when she was getting her hair put together and putting her lipstick on, and say to yourself, smile while you're saying it. I am my own best friend, for I came into this world to be myself. For that I came. Thank you and all my best.